What's up, guys, and welcome to One Take. We are here tonight to talk about the DEVS series finale. And if you were here with us on the pre-show, welcome back. And let's not waste any time. Let's talk about everything we just saw. But first, quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notified the next time we go live, the next time we release a video. Adam.
Yes.
What just happened at the end of that episode?
Well, I think everything happened. Everything that could have happened happened.
Well, and I want to caveat, by the way, while Lily and Forrest were talking at the end there, Adam turned to me and he said, I figured everything out. I figured it all out.
That was it. I figured it out in some universe, not this one. Okay, here's the beginnings of an idea of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
The thing we all kind of understand is that a simulation got created from the moment of their deaths. All that data was taken and simulations were spawned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Using that very machine, the DEVS machine.
Right.
Now, here to my point that I made before in the pre-show about why it might turn to static. For me, static could indicate basically a bunch of things all happening simultaneously, right? A bunch of, even if each individual reality that gets created has its own unique signature, if they're all in a superposition, all on top of each other,
right,
you end up with static because it's all just intermingling signal.
Mm-hmm.
I think what just happened is a completely new universe was spawned, a whole new multiverse. What we saw at the end was that there were simulations of all kinds of different possible realities that Forrest and Lily could end up in. They got lucky and ended up in the Forrest and Lily we know ended up in one that was actually pretty good.
But we saw cuts while they were talking, different angles, the lighting was a little bit different.
Right.
So in theory, there are many other Lilies and many other Forrests out there that are having the same conversation.
Exactly. And I think what we're seeing is the birth of a whole new universe.
Right.
And for all we know, this isn't too directly related, but for all we know, we were already in a simulated universe. And it's not just that within a simulation, you could have another simulation.
Yeah.
Within a simulation, you could have an infinite number of simulations occurring simultaneously,
right,
just the same way that the way, if the many worlds hypothesis is true, it makes much more sense to think about it as being true because there's a bunch of simulations being run all at once,
right,
rather than thinking there's actually truly a bunch of universes out there altogether.
And Austin in the chat says, no, went to static because they turned the machine into a simulation, no longer doing predictive modeling. Actually, I think that's an idea that evolved throughout the series. At first, we think it's just doing predictive modeling. And that's partially true, but the way it was doing predictive modeling is by being a simulation.
Right. And it didn't know. So Katie is then watching the simulation after the fact because the specific tunnel of reality, the specific universe they're in. Now, I could be wrong, by the way. We're all trying to process this together.
Speaking very authoritatively.
Yeah. With the more confidence I have, the more real it sounds.
Right.
But I think that the reason she can then watch what's being simulated is because in each branch of all these multiverses that were spawned, you have the simulation that corresponds to it, maybe. And I know the idea is somewhat changing. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Right.
But there could be another universe in which Katie's watching them living in a hellish simulation.
Right. She can say, and I think if she wanted the machine to act as a predictive model, well, I guess maybe she wouldn't be able to do that anymore. If she tried to model their own reality, it seems like it did seem to break.
Yeah.
Because of Lily's exercising her free will, maybe?
I guess. That's it starts to get confusing there.
Right.
How come she was the only one who could act against the machine?
Well, not that many people were given the opportunity to act against it, if you think about it. It was really 3-ish people, Katie and Forrest, who were very strong believers in what the machine did, so they wouldn't have even attempted to go against it. Lily was the only external person who was brought into it.
Right.
And even the devs that were in there, none of them were really exposed to the future. They were watching the past.
Right. They were told not to mess with the future. So, okay, so that makes sense. So the only people who had the opportunity to challenge the machine or try to resist it were people who wouldn't have tried to because they were essentially religious believers.
It seems like Forrest put himself on a pedestal, right? These tech people seem to think of themselves as messiahs, when in the end, those tech people who were drinking their own Kool-Aid, they were the ones that were unable to do this miracle. The person who was not involved in this at all, Lily, she was the one who was able to come in and make an actual choice. And you saw how terrified Forrest was in that moment.
Yeah, because it's like undermining his basic religion.
Right. And I guess right before we ended the pre-show stream, I asked you, are we going to get a happy ending? So did we get a happy ending?
I think we got what I predicted, which was somewhere in the middle.
Right.
In the end, it's like, for all we know, Lily already lived in a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
And now she definitely lives in a simulation.
Right.
But it's basically indistinguishable from the reality she was in before, except this reality is going to be better for her. The only way she's different now is that she has all of these traumatic memories.
Right. And it felt like if he had cut to credits a few minutes earlier, I would have said, wow, that is a very surprisingly happy ending for this show. Mm-hmm. But they had to cut and remind us that what we're seeing is on a screen. It's in a simulation. The senator came back. I did not see that coming.
Me neither.
And then Katie makes that comment. I need you to help me keep it on.
Yeah, and we have a comment from Carl Troyd, which says, with the multiverse theory, we got every ending.
That's right.
Exactly. So did we get a happy ending? Did we get a sad ending? We got all the endings.
Right. We got all of them. I'm going to pick the happy ones because why not? And actually, on that note, right, when Jamie and Lily got back together, I complained a little bit earlier about how at times I felt myself get emotionally detached from the show. Mm-hmm. This totally reversed that for me because I did not think that DEVS would end with me rooting for two characters to get together and be in love. But I actually felt emotional in that moment. Yeah. It felt like a really good release to see Lily exhausted after going through this hell where she felt like everything was taken away from her. The nature of her being was taken away from her. And now she sees Jamie. She gets a second, well, really a third chance.
Yeah.
Hugs him, and it felt like such a great emotional release.
Right, and she got to see an alternate, a true reality, which now looking back for her will have been an alternate reality, mm-hmm. in which he did everything for her, and which he showed undying love. And I think that probably makes her feel much better about ending up with him. And
he scored the ultimate brownie points, and he'll never even know what he did to get them.
I bet eventually she explains it all to him.
Yeah, it would be hard to keep that. But how can you explain that without coming off as crazy like Lily did earlier in the season?
I don't know, but I feel like Jamie will believe her.
Yeah, Jamie does seem like the gullible type.
Yeah. I like everyone's saying, like, screw Sergei, not a happy ending for Sergei.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think he genuinely liked her, but the way he reacted when she showed suspicion toward him.
Right. What are you talking about? You're crazy.
Yeah. It shows that he cared ultimately more about his job than about her.
Right. I believe him when he says that he loved Lily. I do think that's true. I don't think you can fake that for such an extended period of time. Though then again, his friend Pete was able to fake being a homeless guy, which would probably be a lot harder than faking being in a relationship with Lily Chan.
I feel bad for Pete because as far as he knows, both of his friends, Jamie and Lily, are gone.
Yeah, that's right. How about when Lily was reliving that day and she gave Pete that look, and Pete was just like, "What?
Yeah. I'm not a spy." What?
Martyr in the chat says Jamie would believe Lily, and I think you're right about that. Am I right in thinking that Alex Garland found a way to end the series without having to explain the nature of reality?
Yeah,
because he really didn't get pinned down on do we have free will or not. Is the many worlds theory correct or not? I think it's easy to watch the show and say, yeah, many worlds is correct. But all we know is that the machine seems to work when you use the many worlds interpretation.
Right.
So there are many worlds in the simulation.
Right, which is the way a lot of physicists right now believe in the many worlds interpretation just because it works better. The assumptions that you make for that interpretation lead to accurate predictions about other things. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean it's actually true.
Right. You can have a mathematical equation that works, And it seems to work, but like you said, doesn't mean every variable in there is accurate or true.
Right.
OG Shy in the chat says, this show asks the question, does our reality really matter? I would say it does. Even though they were resurrected in the cloud, there is still no proof that they are the same people. Alon, that's exactly what you were saying, right as the credits rolled, right?
Yeah. Well, assuming that they were in reality in the first place, this simulation, I don't see how it's possible that it is the actual them. They even made a comment at one point where they gave them the memories
Right, up until the moment of their death.
that point. So to me, their original selves are dead, and these are just basically clones that have all the same memories and feel like they were the original.
So here's a question for you then. If they had created this simulation, but also they had not died, what would have... Then for sure they wouldn't be them, right?
Right, because then you'd have two at the same time.
Right. So are these simulations even conscious? Do they have any inner life at all, or are they just there for Katie to look at and longingly observe?
Well,
right.
Now we're getting into what is consciousness and have they cracked how to actually create it.
Right.
From what we saw, it is and heard in this show, it is entirely possible that no, they are not conscious. They just are very believable.
Yeah, or that if you go by what Katie says or implies, consciousness might not even be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that we think exists, we feel like it exists. But as Alon, what you were... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And here's another theory. Let's say they were originally in a simulation. Then that means the new Lily and Forrest could actually be the same ones, because if it's a simulation and a simulation, whatever that consciousness is, it could be the same. You'd have to go up many levels to get to reality.
Here's a question.
The conscious split into
let's say, when you deal with like your bank account online or something, it's just a bunch of numbers, right? Hopefully a lot of numbers. And how do you know which dollar is which? You give someone $1, then they spend $1, but it's all digital. Is it one identical dollar, or you're just changing numbers around, right? So in one sense, you could say there's no way to demonstrate that these digital souls are actually souls that are being preserved from one simulation to the next. The other thing you could say is, if you do create that simulation and you end up with these beings, Forrest and Lily, who think they're real and think they're conscious, and yet the original ones didn't die, that doesn't mean you didn't just branch the consciousness of each of them. So each of them will have the same shared memories, and they'll say, no, I'm still me. I'm definitely the real me. They're both saying that, and they're both standing right next to each other.
Right.
But I don't know if either one's wrong.
Right. And if there is such a thing as consciousness or a human soul, then on this show with their device, they've recreated it at the quantum level. They could not be more the same. Right. So if it is possible to take Lily Chan's consciousness and stick it into a simulation, they did it. But to your point, could they have done that when she was still alive? If so, it would be hard to argue that they really put her in the simulation versus making a copy. Is there really a difference? I mean, even in the ending we got, they're basically saying they exist in many realities at the same time.
Right. I think I suspect that the show kind of buys into or believes in the idea of branching, both in terms of branching universes and branching consciousness, right?
Consciousness.
And they even emphasize the branches, like when they're showing the scene of Lily walking across that bridge on the Amaya campus. The camera pans up and just kind of focuses on these branches, and I think it's very deliberate.
Right. And I saw an interview with Alex Garland where he talked about determinism, and if it were true, if it is true, doesn't that kind of take the meaning out of life? And he said it really doesn't at all. We're still experiencing life. We're still experiencing love. There's still drama. Even if we're on tram lines and we're moving through it, it's still an experience that we're having and that we care about. So, I mean, we could go in a circle forever asking the question, the Lily that we see at the end of the episode, is that the same Lily that we saw in every other episode? Is it just a copy? We're never going to be able to answer that question.
Well, and think about this. One of the last things that Lily's father said to her was it was a quote from the Greek philosopher Heraclitus. And he said, "No man sets foot in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man."
Right.
So what do we even mean? Let's assume that that's true, right? If things are constantly in flux, things are always changing, especially at the quantum level. It's basically defined by rapid change with no center, no fixed anything. So maybe it's nonsense to say, are they the same person? Even within right now, second to second, our brains are full of different electrical activity, different orientations of molecules. Just because I have the memory of sitting here 5 seconds ago doesn't mean there's any other continuity besides that.
Right. People all the time will bring up the example of, if you look at all the cells in your body, those are not the same cells that comprised your body 10 years ago. So are you the same person? Right? Does that even mean anything?
Yeah, for all we know, your consciousness died 10 minutes ago and a different one took over, but you just have all the exact same memories.
Right.
That is what happened. I remember.
Carlos in the chat says, but why was Sergio so nonchalant when she came back to life? I think you mean, why was Sergei so nonchalant? Well, from Sergei's perspective, he doesn't have the memories of her dying. Everybody else in this world besides Lily and Forrest don't know about any of the stuff that happened in the previous episodes.
Right.
So for him, she never came back to life. She never died. She was just always there. The only weird thing for him is why she was freaking out when he woke up.
Right. And as far as he knows, it's because she somehow he slipped up and accidentally left evidence that he's a Russian spy.
Right.
So there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for why she'd suddenly be acting weird about him.
Right. And Carlos is clarifying, meant Lily. Why was Lily so nonchalant? And I mean, she maybe got used to the situation a little bit quickly, but I think she was freaking out as soon as she woke up. And given what she has just been through dealing with the nature of reality, she probably would get used to it a little bit faster than you or I would.
Also, everything that happened was so wild that it's possible when she woke up, she was like, was that real?
She might have been wondering if that was a dream. She even says, right? He says, did you have a bad dream? And she says, I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yeah. Right. That's why one of the reasons she would want to see his phone is like, just like, is everything I remember about this true?
Right. So the whole scene, I mean, going back to the beginning of the episode, when Lily walks into DEVS, that was 20 to 30 minutes of me just on the edge of my seat.
Me too.
The same way that every time they show us the device and we look back into the past, I feel like I'm actually watching the past. Same thing happened here. I felt like I was truly seeing the experiment of free will playing out. We watched that whole scene. Finally, we get to see what leads to the moment of the world going fuzzy. We see Lily shoot Forrest in the head, breach the vacuum, and then the thing falls to the ground. We see all that happen, and then we see Lily start to go through the motions of that whole projection. And the whole time you're sitting there saying, do something, don't shoot him.
Right.
In the moment where she threw the gun away, holy crap.
I know. I was like, yes. Then I was very, very confused.
Right. And then when Forrest starts freaking out, again, I can't say enough about how great Nick Offerman is in this show, but the absolute terror on his face, his whole worldview being shattered in front of him, and he has no idea what's going to happen now. From his perspective, the rules of reality don't seem to apply anymore. And that whole scene was incredible. And like I said, I didn't feel like I was watching, okay, what did Alex Garland write for this scene? I felt like I was watching what would happen if you saw the future and then tried to change it. And then Stewart stepped in.
Yeah. I want to give the writers the benefit of the doubt, and so I'll need to think more about this, maybe rewatch some of the series, but I didn't get the feeling in the moment that they crafted his character well enough to make me believe that he would intentionally sabotage things the way that he did.
Well, I bought that he would sabotage DEVS.
Right, but to kill Lily?
That's what threw me off. Yeah. But, I mean, they did do, if you go back, I think if we go back and rewatch last week's episode, we joked about it before, saying, wow, he's been hanging out in the hallway all day, ha, ha, ha. Think about that, though. He's standing in a hallway reciting poetry about death and mortality.
Yeah, he's a little unhinged, maybe.
He was unhinged.
And also, everyone knew that Sergei was killed, it seems, right?
Right.
And he even said to Lyndon, like, they will kill you. And yet he just kept working there and going along with everything.
That's true.
Maybe we liked him too much.
Damn, that's the biggest twist of all.
Seriously. We let his charming, fun exterior lull us into a false sense of security.
There is an alternate universe where Stewart did not do that.
Yeah.
So he's still a good guy somewhere.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's
enough for me.
If you look at the description that I wrote for our pre-show, I listed a bunch of questions. Will Lily alter the rules of reality? The last question I listed was, will Stewart continue to be awesome and somebody who I wish was my friend in real life? And I think the answer was no. And I get Diggs in the chat is saying maybe that was Stewart's revenge for killing Lyndon. I don't know do we know for sure that Stewart is aware that Lyndon was killed?
I don't think so.
I don't think we know that. He might be aware.
I mean, maybe he looked into the DEVS machine.
That's true. He might have looked at it and he would have seen it. But even if not for Lyndon's death, he's still just terrified of what Forrest is doing. And I could see him wanting to take the machine down.
We do know that Stewart is willing to violate the rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was only shown to us that he was willing to violate people's privacy, but maybe he had also looked into the future. Maybe he'd been following along with everything that was developing and had his reasons for making sure that things went down the way that they were supposed to.
Could be. And to be fair, if Lily did truly wake up in the simulation in a better world, he did send her to paradise in a way.
Yeah. How much could you really enjoy it though? Like knowing for sure that it's not real. Whereas before you would just be like, I don't know, maybe Elon Musk says it's a simulation, but I don't know.
Life is a Freestyle in the chat asks, was this the last episode of season 1? Yes, but more than that, it was the last episode of DEVS ever.
Yeah.
Alex Garland basically said, in general, he doesn't do sequels. He usually likes to tell a complete story, and he said the same applies to DEVS.
Right. But if you haven't seen the movie Ex Machina, go watch that. It'll scratch the itch if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, Alex Garland even said that a lot of the themes he explored in Ex Machina, there's crossover with DEVS. There are also plenty of new ideas in DEVS he didn't explore there, but they are very nice companion pieces.
Also, I enjoyed the multi-layer wordplay. So first of all, just telling us that DEVS, the V in Latin, which is actually pronounced as a U, Deus. First of all, we have Deus now, which means God, but then also his other movie is Ex Machina. So you put them together, you have Deus Ex Machina. It's
God
like 2 layers of winking at the audience.
Yeah, that's right. And what were we just talking about? Stewart, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
So, mixed feelings about Stewart. I loved him. To some degree, I understand why he did what he did. I mean, once that device starts working and you see Forrest put this immense power in his hands, that's a pretty terrifying thing.
Do you think the name Forrest is, again, going back to the whole idea of branching, and you have all these different trees, all these different realities, all these branches.
Right.
In the end, they specifically show him existing in many different forms.
Yeah, so I can't imagine that Garland would have given Forrest that name. Even if that's not the reason he gave him that name, I'm sure it occurred to him at some point. And I've got to think about that one more. But there was a lot of focus on trees.
Right.
And you brought up the point when they were at the bridge, the camera pans up, focuses on the tree. They talked about branching realities. So I think Forrest likely is an allusion to that.
Right. I agree. And then also Lily, that's another plant. It makes me think of like water lily, which is a water-based plant. No person steps in the same river twice. All the, it's a very clever use of words and names.
Diggs says Lyndon is alive in the system. That's what he accomplished. So Stewart did bring Lyndon back. That's true.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I guess couldn't he have done that other ways?
I don't know. I don't think he knew entirely what he was doing. It was mainly, I'm a shell of a man. My mind has been broken the same way Lily's mind was broken. And he just had, I got to take down DEVS. I don't know if he gave it that much thought.
I can't blame him. Like the whole thing was, it was trouble.
It was trouble. He actually tried to warn Lily, right? He said, there's only trouble in there. Well, if you have to go in, go ahead.
True.
He just wasn't his usual. Usually Stewart doesn't mince words, but this new broken Stewart does mince words. When Lily and Forrest were talking and talking about free will, Lily says, you took everything away from me. Forrest says, sorry, I've taken nothing. I can't take away what you never had. Free will is an illusion. Life is just watching life unfold like pictures on a screen. And then you turned to me and you said, Gil, write down Zen Buddhism.
Yes. So I've read a lot about Zen Buddhism, and this was like very similar to the types of things that people in that religion talk about. So there's this idea of equanimity, of like just, in fact, there's like many like alleged stages to enlightenment, and the first one is called stream entry, which is this idea of basically feeling like you've been immersed in this stream of experience, and then it's all just kind of happening. You're not really acting. You see yourself acting, you see yourself involved in the world, but it all feels kind of more unified. You don't feel as much of a sense of separation between yourself and the environment. Here, Forrest is saying, sitting here watching the dais play out over and over again, seeing the way the future works, he's given up the sense of control. He's become no different from his surroundings. That's how he feels.
Right, and they get very literal with that, because they talk about how if you take one particle and understand how it interacts with the particles around it, you can extrapolate and understand everything. We see that experiment a few episodes ago where they look at the rat and they're able to recreate that rat perfectly in the system, and then from that they extrapolate, and you see Forrest's face ultimately.
Right.
So they get very literal with that metaphor. Life is a freestyle in the chat asks, I wonder how much Lyndon remembers. A couple of other folks have jumped in to answer that question. And if we take what Forrest says, then the only people who remember anything are Forrest and Lily. Everybody else, they have no idea. They're in a simulation. They don't know anything crazy happened.
Yeah.
A few other random thoughts. This is another one that you had me write down. Amaya,
right?
And you said meaning.
So this show is full of religious allusions and comparisons. So the word and I'm pretty sure this is on purpose. The word Maya, again, I think in Hinduism means like an illusion or a veil, something concealed from you, something that hides the truth. In other similar, like in other uses, it can also basically mean like the equivalent of the devil, that's like concealing the true reality from you. And so there's something going on there.
I was waiting for the punchline.
I know there's not that much of a payoff, but I think the idea basically is that reality is an illusion. I think Forrest has started to embrace that idea. That's why he doesn't. First of all, I think he needs to hold on to that idea, because if the reality as we feel it to be of free will and choice, if that's true, he has a lot of therapy to go to.
Right.
But if he can kind of embrace the Maya, the idea that everything is illusory, then he can just enter the stream and just go with it.
Right. And Scrockfit in the chat asks, question, why is Katie adamant that someone keep devs on? Is the simulation running real time, or are all the infinite simulations running simultaneously? Based off the fact that she is adamant about keeping it on, my assumption is that it is running in real time. And we do see them watch the screen. There's never been any indication that it runs according to anything other than real time. But I did think about the fact that you can jump around in time when you're using the device, right? You can jump to the future, you can jump to the past. So it did make me wonder, if you have the machine on for only one moment, does all of time exist in that moment? Lily can live out an entire lifetime, and you could turn off the device and it wouldn't really matter. Or the fact that now that they've introduced a true human consciousness into the device, is she experiencing time in quote-unquote real time? And therefore, it is important for Katie to leave the device
Right,
on.
like if she fast-forwarded, would Lily perceive everything as moving faster around her, slower around her?
Right.
Something.
Or it could be a selfish thing for Katie, where she just misses Forrest and wants the ability to check in on him and see him again. It could be that even if the machine is only on for a moment, infinite time plays out, but Katie wants it there so she can see Forrest.
If I were a writer for this and I was trying to give a scientific explanation for why it had to play out in real time, either real time or slower than reality, I would say that because of the processing power necessary to simulate this, there's no way to do it faster than than our current reality. It would have to either be the same pace or slower.
Right.
Although that wouldn't really explain then why they were able to like fast forward and rewind so quickly with the other simulations.
Right. And that there could be something, I was sort of alluding to this when I talked about introducing a human consciousness into the device, but it could be that they were able to fast forward and rewind until the event took place where Lily made a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Did that fundamentally change something about the machine? Did introducing Forrest and Lily into the machine change something about it, where you do need to leave it on and it occurs in real time? Got to think about that more. But if it's occurring in real time, then yes, turning off the device would essentially kill them.
The thing that it's going to take me a while to come to terms with is Lily's choice.
Mm-hmm.
I need to either read some really good theories about it or come up with some myself, but I'm having a hard time figuring out why she was. Now, I know we talked about it. Like, she was kind of the only one who had the opportunity to, because the other people who did have a chance weren't really, they didn't even believe they could try.
Right. Forrest and Katie, they have the machine, they see the projections, and they just go along with it. They don't even try to change the future. Lily is the external factor that came in and it tried to make a choice. So in theory, any one of us could have gone in there and made a choice.
I don't. Can I give spoilers for Jessica Jones? Because I actually just thought of a similarity.
Sure.
Let's say spoilers for Jessica Jones for the next 15 seconds. If you don't want spoilers, just cover the old eardrums.
Okay. So I actually started thinking of the villain in season 1 of Jessica Jones kind of as determinism, where Jessica Jones felt she was under his control until the moment she realized, wait a minute, no, I'm not. And she had free will again. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
It's a mentality.
So it's kind of like something snapped where what you said, Gil, sounds like the most credible thing to me so far, where basically everyone else was so convinced that they didn't have free will that they were just going step by step everything that they were told they were going to do.
You know, they in essence many of them seemed to have this reverence and love for the dais.
Right.
Which is, I'm going to call it the dais.
Yeah, I know. I noticed
it's
that.
easier than saying the DEVS machine. I think, like, for them, it may have almost felt blasphemous to try to challenge it or resist it.
Right. It would be like a religious person facing somebody telling them, God isn't real, or learning or having their faith challenged in some very deep way. That's why Forrest wasn't just scared, he was disturbed, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like specifically in the Bible that you're not supposed to challenge God.
Right. Another little detail I noticed right at the beginning of the episode, we see quick flashes of Forrest's face, I think, Lily's, and Jamie's. And seeing Jamie's face, when we see Forrest's face and Lily's face, I connected that back at the end of the episode when Forrest wakes up in that white void. So does that mean that they took Jamie as well and introduced him into the simulation, but just didn't give him the knowledge that he's in a simulation?
I think maybe it was just a way of foreshadowing that they're coming back. Right.
It could be. Another thing I've got to rewatch and think about. Lily's necklace, by the way, I think a few people were wondering if that infinity symbol was new. You just watched all the episodes today, but you said we've seen that necklace before, right?
We have seen it before, right? Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Yeah. Question answers.
Carlos asks, how come Kenton had so much power? When he took Lily to see a therapist and after the session, told her to sit down so he can have a chat, how he's a security guard, it makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, his character did seem a little cartoonish. Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if there's anything more to it other than he's just somebody that has a lot of confidence. He's a scary guy. And it did come off as silly sometimes. I mean, that was the scene I talked about where he drowned Jamie, and it just seemed like people were terrified of him. But when that felt awkward or silly, I think to me that's just something that wasn't executed that well in the show. I think he was just meant to be a very intimidating person. So he's exercising control, but it doesn't really mean anything more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I tried to, I could probably find parallels for him or between him and the concept of determinism, and how maybe if she stopped thinking of him as so powerful, she could resist him somehow, or
Right.
I don't know, but I don't really see a need to try to fit it in.
Yeah, and Amber in the chat says, I think they experience true death if the plug is pulled. Devs ultimately dissected the idea of God by building an automated version of the idea of a God.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I absolutely think that's true. If that machine is turned off, they cease to exist.
Right.
Whether it's the real Lily or not, whatever entity exists in that machine vanishes. It's gone.
Right. And for people who watch Black Mirror, this is not a new concept.
Right. They've played with the idea. Actually, somebody in the chat, right as you said that, brought up Black
really?
Mirror. Yeah, they've played with that idea a bunch of cloning consciousness, sticking it into a machine.
Simulations.
Again, a lot of ideas that I think maybe humanity as a whole are struggling with right now. So that's why we're getting so much art about it.
What I'm struggling with is the idea that someone could watch this video and not hit the subscribe button.
My brothers always remind me that in the middle of the video, I should bring up that if you're not currently subscribed to our channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and of course, here's a little secret. Everybody in this chat right now, even if you're watching this on replay and you're not in the chat, you're just watching this. Anybody watching this, you're an amazing person.
You're as amazing as we thought Stewart was.
That's right. But if you click the subscribe button, you become ever so slightly more amazing. You hit the bell icon, you become awesome and amazing in infinite reality.
Superposition of both.
Exactly. So you're going to want to go ahead and do that. Anyway, with that, Adam, what else do you have to say about this episode?
It's going to leave me, it's a head scratcher. It's going to leave me thinking very hard for a long time, reading a lot of I'll probably go down a bunch of random physics Wikipedia rabbit holes, a little philosophy too.
Right.
Who's the creator again? Garland?
Alex Garland.
Yeah, he does a fair number of interviews as well, so I'm going to go track those down and just try to make more sense of this. I think we have a working theory for why Lily was able to violate the dais. I want to make sure that that's actually what it is.
Right.
I want to think more about what the static we were seeing was. My working theory is that it's related to the machine at a certain point just basically not able to process an infinite number of streams of new worlds.
Right.
That are new simulations. But there's definitely some holes in the way I was speaking about it, because at one point I postulated maybe at that point the whole universe branch, the universe we have been in the whole time branched, and for every branch there was a different simulation. Right. I still think that's possible, but I still don't exactly know why that would lead to static on the screen. I think it still could, because the machine doesn't know which branch your consciousness will branch into, because as long as you survive in most of those branches, it doesn't know which one to show you.
Right. And while you were talking, a couple of other thoughts came to mind. I was thinking about Forrest, and a few things he did throughout the season, they I think are put in a little bit of a different context now and maybe make more sense. So the one I kept going back to, when Forrest told Jamie everything's going to be okay. I know everything's going to be okay. At the time, I suspected that he truly did know that. And my theory was that he knew that once he died, or if this reality collapsed, if we die here, our consciousness will go to another reality where things are better. And in some ways, that is what happened. I didn't predict that it was going to be within the simulation, but perhaps Forrest did know that this was their contingency plan.
Does that mean that that the contingency plan was to simulate their consciousness?
Exactly. I think Forrest, they saw that they were going to die. They saw it in the simulation.
Right.
So I think they had this plan where Forrest was going to insert his consciousness into the system. That could also be why it was so important that they got the machine working. When it was blurry, it was important to him that they don't use the many worlds interpretation, because he knew he was going to enter the machine at some point, and he wanted to make sure that it was his daughter in there. So we all said, a lot of people were thinking maybe he's trying to bring his daughter back. And in a way, he was trying to bring her back, but he wasn't going to bring her into the real world. He was going to stick himself into the machine. But when he got there, he wanted to make sure it was his Amaya.
Right. He wanted to take the blue pill.
Right. And then at the end of the series, when Katie says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" It's going to be using Lyndon's idea. That's him finally saying, you know what? I accept the many worlds. I really freaking miss them.
Yeah.
And finally, we all looked at each other when he said them, because we were like, okay, not just his daughter. He does miss his wife too.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the first sign of it.
They probably did some quick editing in the last few days.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
crap,
it's like-
people think he doesn't care about his wife.
Now, I misheard what he said. I thought he said I miss him. And I was like, whoa, this
Jamie?
is a swerve. Who's he talking about? And
And
then,
Jamie, we had some good times with
Yeah.
that frisbee.
yeah, exactly. I was so
It's like the
confused
son
for a
I never
second.
had.
Instead, I had a Maya.
Yeah.
That's nice. Anyway, so I have to say, I think. Well, I'll ask you, Adam. Did Alex Garland stick the landing?
Yes. Maybe not as sticky as I would have wanted, but
Yeah.
I don't know how I would have done it better at
Mhm.
all. And I think he stuck it in the sense that it's making me think a lot. I have yet to find some kind of major flaw or something that makes me think, oh, he screwed up. This is a big mistake.
Right, right.
So I'd say he stuck the landing in that sense. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
perplexing. It sparked my curiosity. I want to learn a lot more,
Mhm.
and I felt something.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, my one complaint about the show was that at times I did emotionally detach, but this episode was emotionally charged. I mean, it was super tense for the first half. We got the Jamie Lily reunion that got me a little bit emotional. That was great. So I do think he stuck the landing. I think that there's a lot to continue talking about, and that's what you want at the end of a series. Something you can continue to dissect and discuss. Gives you a lot of questions, and I thought it was surprisingly happy. It felt somewhat of an optimistic ending. It felt like they were saying there is free will,
Yeah,
which is interesting.
that's
to
what
me.
we all want to hear, right?
Exactly, that's what we want to hear. And I wonder if Alex Garland, I think he's said in interviews that he is a determinist, but I wonder if he says, you know what, it's a TV show. If we are living in a deterministic reality, it's still something we experience. We want to feel good, so I'm going to end the show on a positive note, but not too positive.
Yeah.
Because then you got to have the zoom out of the screen.
Also, I think that I think it's a mistake to assume that determinism and free will are incompatible.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's possible to see choice as a actual part of the universe or a part of biology. It's a thing that humans do. There is definitely a difference between the way our minds seem to work and the way the minds of like lower, not lesser species.
A nematode.
But yeah.
I'd say a nematode is a lesser species.
A
I think
nematode
we can
is,
get
yeah.
away with that.
But like a dog is not. Like they're different. They have emotions and feelings. But let's say a nematode, like, and mice too in labs. We can model how their brains work. We can make a lot of predictions.
Mhm.
Not quite the way devs can, but we're getting there. And I think the same is true of humans. But just because we make choices using our brains, just because our choices happen through our neurons, doesn't mean we don't do something that we call choice.
Mm-hmm. And a bunch of stuff in the chat here I want to look at. First, OG Shy says, so how do you see the U.S. government utilizing DEVS? And that's a terrifying question.
Yeah, I guess you could use it. You could train AIs inside of it by running tons and tons of simulations until you find like the perfect killing machine.
Right. And in that, I have to think about why Katie felt like she had to go to the government. But I guess if the machine is no longer being used as a predictive model, I don't know how they. I honestly, I just have to think about it.
Yeah, that felt a
Yeah.
little odd to stick in there.
Yeah.
Because like it seemed like they were trying to answer a worry we might have of like, what if the power goes out?
Right.
Even though none of us were worried.
Well, I'm not surprised that the government got involved at the end there. 2 people died there. They probably have a lot of questions
That's true.
That's true.
that
Yeah.
are not avoidable at this point.
Right. Maybe they came knocking on the door and Katie was like, well, I guess I have to work with them.
Yeah. Fair enough. And Omarter in the chat says, why is there still a statue of Amaya? And I think that Forrest probably decided in this new reality that he still liked the idea of dedicating the company to his daughter.
Right. And that's actually not out of the ordinary, at least because I know Steve Jobs named one of his early computers that Apple built. He called it the Lisa, which was the name of his illegitimate daughter, who he didn't even acknowledge that it was his daughter.
Right.
Not legally, not out in the open, but he still named that computer after her.
Yeah, and Diggs in the chat says, how do they finance Deus if Forrest is dead? Implying that that's why she had to go to the government. But that's what I was starting to get to. But even with Forrest dead, whatever the company did before, I imagine, I mean, they have some kind of a mainstream product.
I imagine they're like Google or something.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I kind of started to say it and then stopped.
Maybe they're more like Ask Jeeves. Like, we're running out of money.
Yeah, exactly.
I like Ms. Cybervamp says there is, one flaw, which is the pose on that statue is awkward.
Yeah, it's an awkward looking statue and pretty terrifying.
It's still amazing to think back to the first episode, Gil, when you and I first saw that statue and we started questioning, like, what is going on? Is that thing alive? Do people even see it?
Right,
because it was just so eerie.
I think at the time I was trying to make my prediction at the time is that, okay, Amaya, this company must do something mainstream to get funding. Well, they have a giant statue of this young girl. Maybe they do something to promote life. Like if you can't have kids, they'll build you a robot kid or something.
So what's funny is I accidentally started watching the second episode when I first started. I thought it was the first. I thought it was the first episode, and the second episode cold opens with this burnt body. Okay,
and what show am I watching?
I knew very little about the show other than that it involved computers deciphering the future. And so I thought what I was seeing, my mind went straight to there was some kind of apocalypse, some apocalyptic event. Half the country is burnt to a crisp because of nuclear war. And then I realized it's just like a one crime scene. And then Gil walks in and goes, "You're on episode 2 already." Yeah. And I was like, wait, what?
Scrockfit asks, random for fun question, but do you think Katie will insert herself into Deus later to join Forrest or leave him be to be with his wife and daughter?
I think she'll find one of those simulations in which maybe the wife and daughter aren't there, or he loses his wife some other way.
Yeah, well, it's a fair question because she's going to be... like I said about Katie earlier, we don't often see her express emotion.
Yeah.
She was devastated losing Forrest. And she knows that there's a machine here, that it's the ultimate virtual reality. It's going to be a temptation for her.
She's just going to play Half-Life for like 2,000 years.
Half-Life Alex?
Yeah. I could see her maybe not entering the simulation, but choosing to be this like benevolent observer.
Yeah.
Because I think in the end, I don't think Katie was bad. It seems like she very much loved Forrest.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I mean, how much more could you love someone than to say, I'm even okay not being with them, I just want to see them happy.
Right, exactly. And Jamie Cruz says, good night, guys. Thanks for a great show. Thank you, Jamie, for being a part of the chat. And Adam, is it about time for us to call it a night, you think?
I think so. My eyelids are starting to droop more than normal.
Pretty soon he's going to turn into Stewart. I like the acoustics in here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we can wrap it up there. So quick reminder, this was our immediate reaction to the episode. Right. We have to think about it more. We've got to marinate on it. So we'll do another video in a couple of days where we'll go scene by scene, recap the whole thing, and hopefully have it all figured out by then.
I think so. I'm on the cusp.
Yeah, exactly. He's about to go to his room, put up all the papers and string attaching everything.
I mean, in the middle of the episode, I blurted out, "I figured it out. I got everything."
Yeah.
And also the other thing is, so we're gonna do our full scene by scene recap, analysis, and most likely other videos too. So, like I mentioned in the pregame, I studied philosophy in college. Another one of our brothers, who many of you have not met yet, he was a physics major.
There you go.
So the two of us, we can duke it out.
I have a friend. I have two friends that studied philosophy of physics for their PhD program.
There you go.
Maybe I can get one of them on.
Maybe. They're not stuck in a simulation.
Exactly. Anyway, so I think with that, we can say have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. OG Shy says, love the convo. Subscribed, by the way. OG Shy, I got news for you. You're amazing.
Yeah, and so are you, Scrockfit. Don't think I didn't see that.
Zeke K says, what's the next series you plan on doing? Are you into the Fargo series or nah? And the answer to that is we are into Fargo. We do plan on covering that show. Unfortunately, because of the whole COVID-19 situation, that show's been delayed. It was supposed to come out in April. I don't know when it's going to be releasing now. But actually, that is a good point. If there are any other shows you'd be interested in us covering now that DEVS is over, in the chat here, you can give some suggestions.
Even better, leave it as a comment so that we can go back and revisit it more easily. And then other people can, after the fact, people can give other suggestions or build off of your idea.
Yeah, that would be great. So if you just leave in the comments other shows you'd like us to cover, we're looking for shows that you can really sink your teeth into, dissect, and discuss.
Smart
Sprockfit
shows.
says Westworld. We are covering Westworld already.
Yeah, check out the channel.
That's Grateful Bread.
Oh,
welcome.
Hey, okay, he's one of our Twitchers.
Yeah, we play video games sometimes too. We met him the other night. He was watching.
When there's no shows to talk about, we might go play like Super Mario World on Twitch.
Exactly.
Actually, speaking of COVID-19, it reminded me of one funny thing I thought about, which was when Lily was like, "Okay, wait, so all we need to do is just stay in the apartment," and then that ruins everything that the DEVS is doing. And I was like, that's all we have to do is stay inside, and that just destroys the whole virus thing.
So with that, I think we can say, stay safe, everyone. In the comments, let us know any other shows you'd be interested in us talking about. We're always looking for more shows to watch and discuss. Hit that like button and, of course, the subscribe button. And the bell icon so you get notified the next time we go live.
Final announcement. If you watch Better Call Saul, and if you don't, you should. We're going to have a live watch party just like this one. When? This Monday.
That's right.
This Monday is the season finale. We have a huge event coming up. It's going to be even bigger than this.
We have props.
Costumes, props, pre-recorded competitions. It's going to be ridiculous.
Giveaways, call-ins, if we can figure out the technology.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's right. Yeah, actual live giveaways, and this is not cheap stuff either.
All right. So,
all right.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
We love the anticipation, right? So we're dragging out the anticipation of us saying.
Yeah, it's like the hype horn.
All right, clearly we're getting tired. So, all right, have a good night, everyone. Take care, and we will see you on the next One Take. Thanks for watching.
Good night.